I woke up to my phone screaming at 11 p.m. Critical battery failure. I stumbled outside in my boxers into a November night that was cold enough to see my breath, and there she was, Vivian Cutler, our HOA president, nailed to the driver's seat of her white Tesla in my driveway, charge cable snaking into my emergency outlet, draining 3 months of stored sunlight like it owed her money. The air smelled of overheated plastic, like the inside of a toaster left on too long, and my inverter was singing that awful high-pitched whine you only hear when something expensive is dying. If you'd asked me 3 weeks earlier how my retirement hobby would go, I'd have said panels, neighbors borrowing my ladder, nice savings on the bill, not midnight car charging raids. My name is Garrett Paulson. I'm 54, retired electrical engineer from Arizona Public Service. And 18 months ago, I lost my wife, Miriam, to ovarian cancer. After the funeral, after the silence that sits heavy in a house, I buried myself in the one project Miriam and I had planned together: go fully solar, help our daughter Shayna get through school, and make this little corner of Sagebrush Estates a bit more resilient when the grid hiccuped in Phoenix summers. Vivian took over the HOA 3 years ago, and she runs things like a headmistress with a clipboard, tailored blazers in 110 degrees, oversized sunglasses, a smile sharp enough to cut. Trash can at 7:05, fine. Garden gnome half an inch too tall, fine. Cross her and find stack until you give up. So when a $2,500 architectural review fee for my already permitted panels showed up on my door, I did what engineers do. I gathered paperwork, went to a meeting, explained calmly, and got my microphone cut out of my hand like I was bothering the show. A week later, my solar app woke me at 2:47 a.m. Abnormal discharge. 92% down to 34 in 6 hours. 18 kilowatt hours, gone enough to run the house for 2 days. I called Javier, honest guy who installed the system, and he hooked up his laptop and ran diagnostics until the data read the obvious: someone was pulling power before my meter. The emergency outlet on the side of my house, the 240-volt hookup I installed for a generator, felt warm, fresh scuff marks on the terminals. We left it armed to alert. At 11:17 p.m., I found her, Vivian, sitting in her Tesla, reclining like she was waiting for a late-night latte cable plugged into my outlet. Charging, she said, as if that answered all questions. Your system is community property under Covenant 19B. She said it like the words were a shield. Problem was 19B dealt with hoses and shared landscaping taps, not electrons. Interpretation, she insisted, was the president's purview. She let the lights of entitlement burn a little longer just because she could, then unplugged with theatrical slowness and drove off. I put cameras up the next day, cheap hidden birdhouse in Eve, because proof is the only thing entitlement respects. Night 2 Tesla, night 3 a BMW with a vanity plate, and Dr. Brant Cutler, her husband, pulled up and plugged into a Y-splitter, 90 minutes of simultaneous drain, weeks of the pattern, $340 of stolen electricity was the paper number. The real damage was to a $7,000 battery system getting deep cycled night after night. Lithium packs don't like being starved and then gutted on purpose. Cycle life burns away like a candle in wind. I made spreadsheets. Engineers love spreadsheets. They don't plead, they show. Video clips, logs, timestamps, math. I sent a professional emotionless packet to the HOA board and waited. 4 hours later, emergency board meeting tonight. I brought the laptop. Vivian smiled. Tammy and Rhonda nodded. Jeffrey looked uncomfortable but quiet, the usual roll call of alliances. The board found no evidence of theft. The outlet was external infrastructure. My surveillance violated privacy. Fine me $1,000. I left with a metallic taste in my mouth. County deputies listened and were sympathetic, but civil law, they said, ambiguous. Criminal theft. Arizona law was fuzzy on backyard solar consumption. Civil suit costs were obscene, $15,000 retainer, 18 months unpredictable outcome. I didn't have that. But being a utility engineer teaches you 2 things. There's always another jurisdiction, and regulations hide in boring volumes. I dug until my eyes blurred Arizona Administrative Code Title 14, and there it was, the state agency with teeth for utility issues. I filed a complaint with the Corporation Commission at 11 p.m. on a Sunday and emailed Vivian a copy. That should have chilled her out. It didn't. They cut my outlet not unplugged, but cut bolt cutters through conduit bare copper sparking in the junction box. A note on my door in HOA letterhead. Fire hazard corrected per emergency safety inspection. You're welcome. VC. I bagged the severed wires, photographed them from 6 angles, paid an emergency electrician $890 to make it safe again, and kept every receipt. Then came her plan, a solar equity assessment, $3,200 per solar household per year. Only 3 homes in the neighborhood had panels. Coincidence? Not when it's your brother's landscaping company getting paid $184,000 in vague invoices. Morton, 78, Korean War vet, bourbon in hand. And Candace, the librarian with a spreadsheet habit, came over one Saturday. We spread 800 pages of HOA paperwork across my ping-pong table and started sorting. Pattern emerged, Bohannon Capes LLC invoices under 10 grand, check after check, structured to avoid reporting. County records showed Bohannon owned land adjacent to the development and filed for a commercial solar array around the same time Vivian took office. Bohannon's business partner, Vivian's brother. The petty fines, the sabotage, the assessment, suddenly it had motive profit. That was the twist the moment the fight changed from prove she unplugged me to she's been running an illegitimate fiefdom to siphon HOA money. I dug further. The original 1987 CC&Rs, not the convenient amended packet Vivian distributed, held the keys. Section 12, presidents serve 2 consecutive terms. A third requires 75% approval via secret ballot. Vivian's re-election in January 18 votes out of 220 homeowners 8%, not 75. 11 months of decisions, fines, contracts void. I laughed then. That relief laugh that sounds dangerous to people nearby because contract law is black and white. I called an attorney who'd quoted me a fortune, explained the math, and he took the case pro bono. Why? Because the law was clear and precedent matters. We mobilized. Jeffrey leaked meeting minutes. Candace printed the proof. Morton hand-delivered flyers, and we scheduled a homeowners workshop the same night as Vivian's planned vote. 207 homeowners RSVP'd. The room fit 80. We spilled into the hallway. I stood up and told them about Miriam, why I put panels on the roof, and then I clicked through evidence like a man who'd learned grief channels into focus. Video of Teslas in my driveway, consumption graphs, the original embossed CC&Rs bank records showing payments to Bohannon. An assistant DA in the back put it in plain language: embezzlement, wire fraud, utility theft, possible criminal referrals. The crowd voted to dissolve the board and call emergency elections. Vivian fled, backing into more than one neighbor's property on her way out. Her Tesla was later repossessed. Yes, we got justice in that satisfying clearing sort of way. The HOA audits started, fines were reversed, vendor contracts frozen, and the solar assessment died on the vine. The county and state stepped in. An independent audit traced roughly $240,000 misappropriated. A civil recovery and insurance covered most of it. Vivian pled to misdemeanor fraud, community service probation, and most importantly for me, she moved out within 30 days. We did more than punish one bad actor. We built the thing she'd blocked: a community solar co-op on the community center roof panels that produce credits on homeowners' bills, technical help for neighbors, and a Miriam Polson Memorial Scholarship for aspiring electrical engineers. I started a blog with practical, boring how-to guides on documenting abuse, building evidence, and speaking the language of county recorders so other people wouldn't get steamrolled. There's a moral here, but not a sermon. It's simple. Paperwork is power, and attention is the antidote to small kingdoms. People in positions of local authority count on your apathy. They count on you not reading page 12. If you've got one takeaway, let it be this: read the covenants, show up at meetings, and don't assume silence equals consent. But I'll leave you with a harder question, one I've wrestled with while flipping burgers at the community barbecue. When does clever defensive engineering stop being justice and start being escalation? I set a trap that exposed the theft, but I did it with counsel, within code limits, and with safety as priority. What if I'd been wrong? What if the spike had started a fire? Where's the line between defense and dangerous vigilante? So what would you do? Take the retainer and litigate, or build a legal trap and show the receipts? Drop your state below. Tell me your HOA nightmare. And if this made you want to pull your original CC and Rs out of the attic, hit like, share, and tell the world what you think is worth fighting for. Because a neighborhood that reads its paperwork and shows up to vote, that neighborhood doesn't just save money, it saves itself.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video. Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.